Coming up next is the Dr. Kim Taylor Show. Here's your chance to talk about what matters to you. Although you'll receive helpful advice from Dr. Kim, remember this is not to be construed as any form of psychotherapy, diagnosis or treatment, and cannot replace a therapeutic relationship with a mental health professional. You can reach Dr. Kim by calling 564-1290 or 866-564-1290. You can also listen live on the internet at drkimtaylorshow.com. Now, here's Dr. Kim.
Welcome to my program today. We're into the month of May, and it's that time of year when many proud parents and students are really planning for that big graduation day and all that lies ahead. Many will have plans to enter college in the fall, while still others are going to be counting the days when they'll be able to move away from their parents' home and begin a new life on their own. But today we're taking up the topic of young adults who are failing to launch themselves into an independent and fulfilling life. And instead, they're choosing to stay home and live with their parents, well into their 20s and 30s or beyond. The term failure to launch is a popular way to describe the difficulties that some people are facing when they try to transition into the next phase of their life that typically involves having to be more independent and responsible for themselves. Now, you may remember that movie, Failure to Launch. It was with Matthew McConaughey, and he portrayed this young man who was in his 30s. And in the movie, his parents are desperately trying to get him to move out of their home and to be on his own. But he's quite happy to have his parents support him, to have his mother still fix his meals and do his laundry, while he can continue to play with his friends and sleep in and party. So what about those kids who are either not leaving or they're returning home after college and still living with their parents years later? Are you one of those parents who's frustrated and wondering what you should do with your child who might be showing very little interest in moving out of your home and becoming that self-sufficient adult? It seems that families are more confused than ever to try and understand this growing trend that's happening amongst the millennial generation of young adults who have been born between 1980 and the year 2000. But it is a very real issue, and for many young people today, they either lack the desire or the necessary skills to leave home to have a successful and productive life. So with that in mind, my guest today is Dr. Robert Fisher. He's the director at Optimum Performance Institute, and he's here to really help us understand the issue of failure to launch and why so many adult kids are still living with their parents, and what to do if you are a parent of a child who has failed to launch. So if you have any thoughts or questions, by all means, give us a call. We'll be here for the next hour at 805-564-1290, or you can email me at drkim@drkimtaylorshow.com. So come on back after the break. We have lots more to talk about. My guests will be here to answer your questions. I'm Dr. Kim Taylor, and you're listening to KZSB AM 1290.
You are listening to Dr. Kim Taylor on KZSB AM 1290.
We are talking about the issue of young adults who are failing to launch or to move out of their family home. And there are many parents out there who are kind of scratching their heads and wondering why they have these children who are not interested in being on their own. My guest is Dr. Robert Fisher. He's from the Optimum Performance Institute. Welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Kim, for having me.
So please explain to us what this term failure to launch really means.
It's a term that's being used now to really describe the difficulties that many young adults are having, fundamentally moving to the next developmental plateau, functioning more independently, finding some balance in their life. And it's translated as being unsuccessful in moving out into the world, either working or educationally, or making an attempt, and then coming back home because the attempt was unsuccessful.
Is it something that is more prevalent now than it was in the past? And is it really important to understand how we got here as a society in the first place?
Absolutely. I think it really is more present. I think all of us know that. We feel that. We see that. I think most people may well know somebody whose young adult is having difficulty moving forward. The reason why, that's far more complex than I can give you some speculation about it.
What are really some of the root causes?
Well, I think what we're seeing is a lot of the young adults now don't seem to have the same internal faith inside of themselves. Their sense of resiliency is really not where it could be. And in addition, there are real factors out of everybody's control. I think young adults make up a phenomenal portion of the people that are presently unemployed. And the economic situation causes stress not only for the young adult, but certainly for the parents.
And are there other factors as far as one's ability within parenting, for instance? Is it a certain parenting style that does then contribute to this issue?
It's very interesting. I think there's not a universal answer other than the parents themselves are aware that they may have been overprotective. There are different terms describing that. But I think it originates out of anxiety and fear. Parents want their children to succeed. And in trying to achieve that, the scaffolding, the interventions are so intense that when the time comes for some of those to be removed, the young adult themselves haven't had the experiences themselves of learning to moderate the anxiety, to understand that when you fall, that's okay, that's part of the process. Then one needs to stand up and try again.
Parents, too. Parents have a lot of anxiety just about their children, that they want their children, for instance, to be happy. I mean, that's a wish of every single parent. But this can also go to the extreme, it seems, because if parents are pushing their kids or expecting them to do well, and if they're not doing well, that they fix their problems for them or do their homework for them, it seems like kids would then not be able to foster that resiliency that they might need, or that sense that they have some coping skills to manage their own anxiety. And so all of these opportunities that they might have to learn this are really sometimes taken away by a parent who is also over anxious.
Absolutely, Kim. I think the easiest analogies for us to understand, and what I've said to many young adults that I've had the opportunity to work with is, if you had this attitude when you were a child growing up, you would have never learned to walk. So the analogy is, as the child is learning to walk and falls and looks back for that reassuring glance, that supportive glance, that's still okay. Mm-hmm. And one needs to be able to construct more of an invisible safety net, permitting them the opportunity to fall and get up, and most importantly, breaking this fantasy that everything is going to happen magically, and because we love you, and fundamentally you're a wonderful child and a wonderful person, you too have to go out there and you have to take the falls and develop an internal sense of resilience.
Mm-hmm. But it seems that the primary coping skill that a lot of kids have learned is simply to go to their parents to fix things when there is a problem. They lack the coping skills or the ability to tolerate frustration in order to fix them themselves and to deal with the frustration that it takes to reach a goal.
Well, absolutely. There was a wonderful term that a psychiatrist, Winnicott, came up with. And I think it's a term called good enough mothering. Mm-hmm. And I think he really got it. Because there are some children, when they fall, that the mother will have to go almost right up to the child, almost touch them, but not lift them.
Mm-hmm.
Some children may need to be lifted for that first step. And so it's an internal dynamic that each mother, each father, each family member must begin to be open to exploring. And that certainly, as part of the growth process, there is suffering. Mm-hmm. And there is suffering as we grow, but it's in a greater context of an internal sense of security and love and joy.
Mm-hmm. So it is very important as a good enough parent or good enough mom is to want to be able to fix and solve all of your children's problems. But the good enough mom means that you will tolerate your own frustration and perhaps even help your child to solve the problem rather than to fix that problem for them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think part of the issue is I was recently speaking to a parent, and I began to feel their frustration. Many parents themselves feel quite bad that their children may not be able to achieve what they've achieved. Mm-hmm. And that creates a tremendous sense of feelings within the parents. And so each party must come to peace with the issue fundamentally that maybe the resolve is just get out there and enjoy the process. Mm. Just do your best to enjoy that process. I think that's a great message for all of us.
Well, I think you bring up a good point because parents today do fear that their children will not have it as good as they have, that things are more difficult or cost more, or the whole issue with the economy or the job market. So there is a lot of fear out there, and perhaps a lot of what you're seeing that this is based on fear-based behavior, wanting to make it better, wanting to fix it quickly, rather than allowing the kids to really find their sense of self by being productive, by being proud of meeting a challenge, and doing what they need to do to find their own success.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think one of the things that would be helpful is if we kind of list what does failure to launch actually look like? What are, some of the symptoms that a parent should look for, or just that a young adult would know about themselves? That what should they be looking for? What would really tell them that they're having difficulty at this developmental stage?
I mean, that's a very good question. I think, interestingly enough, all parties know it. Certainly by the time they come to speak with an outsider, then it's easy to look back. It's easy to look back and say, well, gee, in the transition, even in the transition from grammar to middle school to high school, the transitions were hard. And the amount of effort to sustain that individual was quite substantial. Mm-hmm. So the signs go all the way back. And I think the issue is to look at it without judgment, because in general, always both parties have a role. Mm-hmm. Parents retrospectively wish they had let the young adult fail. And the young adults very much looking back say, I wish I tried that and just dealt with it myself without trying to unconsciously engage my parents to step in. Mm-hmm. Because that process fundamentally undermines the sense of self-esteem and resilience of those young adults. And that, of course, is exactly what parents do not want, you see.
Mm-hmm. What I hear often is a young adult saying, I just wish my parents had actually pushed me more, that they didn't let me give up so easily. And even though still they're trying to blame their parents for part of this, which isn't helpful, and you've got to help them to turn that around so that they can grow and learn and see that they can do something for themselves. But that is and does seem to be a common statement that I do hear around this issue. Absolutely.
And in the relationship, you see, and hopefully both parties grow. Mm-hmm. Both parties begin to accept. And what I've seen more commonly is the parents. You see, the parents accept the fact that their son or daughter is not going to get into an Ivy League school, And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, fundamentally, what they want is for that individual to go out, have a life, have a balanced life, and experience some joy in their life. But what I see more frequently, and I think it's not uncommon, is the young adult. See, they're still attached to these childhood fantasies and unrealistic expectations that they have of themselves, when many times, many of the parents, they've accepted that. Mm-hmm. And the young adult themselves have to realize that it's not a failure, that it is a lag, because they see everybody moving forward. Mm-hmm. And the point is, it doesn't mean necessarily that they're a failure. It just means that this journey is going to take a different course and perhaps more time.
For them.
Mm-hmm. And that's okay.
Mm-hmm. So some of the signs that you actually do list on your website are low tolerance for distress, which would be one, and also lack of motivation, low level of persistence, a failure to take responsibility when it is appropriate, a low work ethic, narcissism, high expectations of others without giving back, a lack of vision for the future or long-term goals, and a lack of skills needed for adulthood, like just sometimes basic cooking and cleaning skills.
Well, I mean, that's true. That's true. I think from another perspective, one which allows parents and all of us to be more empathetic and appreciate the fact that all parties are suffering, really. Mm-hmm. And what we've described are the behavioral external manifestations of fear, an inner sense of fear on the part of that young adult, that they're not cool enough, they're not attractive enough, they're not bright enough, they're not whatever they're not. And these unrealistic expectations is an issue. It's a real issue for all parties to bring to the light and begin to accept that you don't have to be Superman to be worthy of love and respect.
I'm here with Dr. Robert Fisher. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back.
You are listening to Dr. Kim Taylor on KZSB AM 1290.
Today we're discussing failure to launch and the how and why about why so many young people are still living at home with their parents. Joining me is Dr. Robert Fisher. He's from Optimum Performance Institute. Dr. Fisher, does failure to launch look different in a female than it does in a male?
Kim, I really don't think so. I really think the essence is one of the individual. And a lot depends really on cultural factors and what the expectations are. The issue is that perhaps it's more tolerable for some for the female to be at home because they need to be protected, etc. But I think in this day, I think there are expectations on both genders to get out there and to try and find a balanced life. So I don't see a tremendous differentiation based on sexual issues, male-female, but there's tremendous variation based on the individual, tremendous.
Okay, and just developmentally, is there a particular time when young adults or kids, if it starts out as kids, that they become especially vulnerable to this syndrome?
It's interesting. If we really define, the syndrome as really not being able to make it to the next step, then yes, I mean the transition as an example to intermediary school. That level is an introduction to sexuality, to group process, and you can begin to see difficulties in socialization, self-esteem manifested by, am I part of this group? The next big one really is, again, from high school to take that step. The signs can manifest fundamentally as a withdrawal and isolation, both an internal isolation from that part of ourselves that allowed these young adults to get out there and walk, to be motivated, that when one falls, you can get up again. And then the external, they may begin to withdraw from activities. They may begin to withdraw from things that allow them to express their passion and joy. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So it's really years in the making.
Absolutely.
Okay. We have a caller. Hi, this is Dr. Kim Taylor. I think I'm on the phone with Matt.
Hi, doctor.
Hi. Do you have a question for us?
Well, I grew up here local, and I can tell you many cases of train wrecks, kids never even remotely coming close to the lifestyle of their parents, and it's about as bad as if you were to buy a horse and expect it to win the Kentucky Derby, as if you were to have a kid and expect him to launch. I mean, that's how bad it's gotten. I think its Western ideals have run its course. In fact, the big CBS radio station is doing a program called Graduate to Broke. And the same game that we did in the 50s is not working. And I'll just say one thing real quick. If you decide to have kids, get a big piece of land, have plenty of money in case they don't launch, and that you're there to catch them. I think I've said as much as I possibly can in the fewest words.
Okay, Matt. Thank you very much for your call. Bob, what do you think about what Matt just said, that he sounds rather resigned to the fact that this isn't going to change and that there's nothing that you can really do about it to expect that your kids will be able to succeed at this time and in this age?
Well, I think that pessimism is really attributed to the belief that one's self-worth is measured by one's material possessions only. And I'm not saying at all that material possessions are not part of the process of marking how you're doing, but I do think that his insight into a particular point of view that we've not allowed ourselves or our children to be more focused on the process. Meaning in the resumes that these young people create just to get into college, the question is, did you enjoy the sports? Did you enjoy playing music? What opportunities are there really to really find this balance? So therefore, the flip side is this is an opportunity for all of us to validate what we all say. You know, you don't have to be a superstar to be loved or be esteemed. And that to allow us opportunities to, enjoy our children, enjoy them. And to encourage them to go out there and find something to do with their lives that they enjoy, because that's the energy that allows them to get up and start again and deal with the realities that we're all dealing with.
Mm-hmm. There certainly is a push these days for the instant success, the instant gratification. And it seems like the longer goals, or like when I grew up, we had to put things on layaway, which meant that we had to work for it and we had to bring the money in and that we had to pay it off before we got it. And there was something about being able to work for that and the excitement that held that was exciting, and when you finally did it, you felt really good, not about necessarily the object you got, but about the work you put in to get there. And so some of that seems to be missing these days, where we want everything, we want it quick, and kids are growing up expecting that they should have it, and they certainly see it on TV and in the movies. Mm. So does this instant gratification mentality also contribute to a sense of hopelessness about being able to achieve something if they don't get it right away?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And as we've evolved as a culture, I mean, everybody is texting and, even the constraints of grammar and making yourself clear, communicating in sound bites. It's just part of what is being reinforced now. And frankly, there's not a lot of reinforcement to say, look, it's okay. It's really okay to go ahead and devote yourself. Go ahead and find some passion and find a way to express that. And that's worth it. Even though there's no monetary remuneration, the emotional is healing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So you've worked with a lot of young adults, and you certainly do that within your program. And so when you work with these people, what is it that they say to themselves in their own heads to justify their behavior or this lack of motivation?
See, it's by the time I see the young people, They're beyond that, actually. Because I guess in one way the good news is they're in the resolution phase, so the whole issue of having to make excuses, they seem to be on that. And that the main theme is one of really suffering. And in the beginning, it manifests as, gee, you've been home for 6 months and you don't have a job. So one response is the job market is tight, and that's true. But then how many times have you gone out? What have you done? Mm-hmm. And that alludes to what you were talking about, just basic skills. Have you ever constructed a resume? Have you ever experienced the disappointment of going for a job and then being said no? But then you, go to another appointment. It doesn't mean that you're devastated. It doesn't mean that you spend the rest of the day in bed. This is just part of the process. Part of the process.
But it seems like for a lot of them, they're very much risk resistant. They don't want to take that risk. They don't want to take that step.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that concept of being risk averse, the point is, if you want to move forward, you got to take risks. And if you take the risk and it doesn't work out, rather than interpreting it as a failure, the Chinese are way ahead of us here. It's an opportunity. Mm-hmm. It's an opportunity. Mm-hmm. And the truth is, and what I've said multiple times is that with this attitude, you would have never learned to walk.
Right.
I mean, you're on the floor. So what do you say? Is it my mom's fault? Do I need an attorney? You know what I mean? what do you say? It's something we've all had that we've lost. And it's this contact with a very creative, curious, the mind of the child, the beginner's mind, you see. And in that mind, there are all possibilities. Everything is possible. And that curiosity and a sense of internal hope, which I believe was biologically wired into us. And cognitively, we have more and more and more and more thinking. We're more and more judgmental. Well, the point is, just get up and do it. It's okay. But that kind of inner faith is something that we have to work at consciously throughout our lives.
But you're talking about now working with someone who is, 20s, 30s, maybe even beyond, who has not been practicing this or learning the art of it. And so how do you get them started in your program to actually start this? Because it sounds really like you have to reparent them.
Yes. And how it happens is that the basic premise, what we're trying to do is allow them to break the shackles of the fear that holds them back. And fundamentally, we think there's a final common pathway for all of us to move forward, to tap into that energy. And it's not complicated, meaning find some passion in your life. Find a way to express that passion joyously and share it. By doing that, you allow yourself to reacquaint yourself with that child that got up and learned to walk, and it negates the isolation and alienation that so many of the young adults feel. And the basis of, I would suggest, more cooperative, more supportive relationships is share some joy with somebody. It's okay. Mm-hmm. And you'll find that that's the foundation. And that's where the energy and freedom is.
Okay, because would you say at the core of a person who is failing to launch is really a sense of their own failure?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And it's so mixed with fear. I keep on talking about fear because sometimes it's manifest as what we call anxiety. Sometimes it's manifest as aggression. Sometimes it's manifest as substance abuse, avoidance. It could be manifested in so many different ways, mm-hmm. and we're all different. Mm-hmm. And we all respond stressors differently. And some people are overwhelmed by something that their brother or sister is not. Mm-hmm. And so we have to do our best to accept that and try to help.
I'm here with Dr. Robert Fisher. He's from Optimum Performance Institute, and we've been talking about young adults who are failing to launch from their family homes into their own productive, joyous lives. We'll be right back after the break. I'm Dr. Kim Taylor.
You are listening to Dr. Kim Taylor on KZSB AM 1290.
We are talking about kids who are really failing to launch themselves into adulthood and to truly become independent and self-sufficient on their own. The syndrome is called failure to launch, and I'm here with Dr. Robert Fisher from Optimum Performance Institute. We have an email, and I'd like to read that and see what some of your thoughts are about this. It says, "Dear Dr. Kim, I can remember laughing at the movie Failure to Launch when it came out, but now I feel like I am living that movie. I too have a son, and he is 32 years old, and I'm ashamed that he is still at home and living off my retirement money. I have been a single mom his whole life, so a part of me feels guilty that I owe him more, and a part of me likes the company and not being alone. But the writing is on the wall, and I know that I am not helping him. Is it too late, or are there things that I can do now to help him move forward? Feeling like I failed my son." Wow. What would you say to someone like that?
That there is hope, but the hope really is based on the individual, the parent, this mom, seeking support for herself to do what she knows she needs to do, to moving beyond judgments, that as a single mom, she's done the best that she could do. And that for all of us have limitations. So the first one is really accepting that it would be an act of love to let her son know that there are some real limitations. Real limitations meaning that she cannot continue to support him. It's painful. It's very, very painful. But she could withdraw financial support. And he could begin to understand that in this world, we all have to, for our own sense of esteem and fulfillment, to really go out there and basically work for it. The other issue, obviously, is an issue of loneliness internally and a deep inner peace that I think this mom needs to give herself the opportunity to be at peace herself and find different sources of joy for herself. It's a difficult thing to do.
Yes, it is. So there are definitely some things that a parent can do where you're saying that they should start to be more clear about the what they expect and to give this adult child some responsibility and to face the natural consequences if he or she does not do it. Perhaps therapy would help, don't you think? That maybe to also deal with the individual issues of the young adult who is full of doubt and full of fear, to be able to face those and to move forward. How about like an organizational coach or someone to help in the aspect of finding work or writing a resume?
Absolutely. I think that whichever the concept, to reach out, to get a neutral party to say, yes, it's time to move forward, both parties to move forward, for a coaching opportunity, a group support opportunity. It can come in many ways. It can come from actually an understanding friend who's willing to be there for you, but let you know what seems to be blatantly obvious is that things must change. Then the issue is what can the mom do, and what can opportunities and supports can be provided for the son also, for both parties.
Okay. And of course, there could be some underlying issues here that are even deeper, whether it's anxiety, depression, attention deficit, perhaps learning disabilities that they've been plagued with their whole lives. So some of these issues probably need to be sorted out so that those issues could be treated alongside doing some of the other things that we've been talking about.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely. So therefore, really, this is an opportunity to reach out for another opinion. If there are any medical or psychological conditions present, the good news is there are opportunities to work with that, to treat that. And there are many, many opportunities. So, no, it's not too late. And there is opportunity right now, even in this moment, that I think this mom has taken by simply reaching out and talking.
Mm-hmm. How important is it to really work with the entire family when you're trying to treat an individual going through this?
I think working with the entire family is absolutely, absolutely essential. Because in the process, it's dynamic. There are times when the parents simply need a tremendous amount of support because they are so frustrated, with good reason. The young adult is equally as frustrated, with equally as good reason. Mm-hmm. And then to really acknowledge that, to just really put that out on the table, look at it, not judge it, and then move on. Ask the questions that are relevant. How can we help each other in this process? Obviously, the parents need to let go a little. And obviously, the young adult needs to accept some responsibility. And whatever those distractions are, if they be an emotional illness, if they be a physical illness, if they be learning disabilities, if they simply be a history of a lack of successes, which has resulted in a tremendous damage to one's self-esteem, and I'm speaking of the young adult, one can deal with it.
Mm-hmm. You are really talking about being able to treat the whole person, not just the symptom or the diagnosis, and to really start to see them in a bigger picture. Because I'm sure for a lot of parents, they're very frustrated, or they think, oh, he's just being stubborn or lazy, or he is just whatever it is he or she is doing. There's a lot of frustration around that, and they're not seeing that there's a major break for this person in that they most likely feel really bad about themselves, that they're not moving forward, that they may even see their peers who are moving forward. So there has to be a lot of disappointment and discouragement for the individual too, and to see it as a whole person problem and not just, as you say, to either judge or to pick out one or two items.
Absolutely. Okay. And it's very easy to say, but when you're the mom or dad, it's not so easy to do.
No, and I think one of the hardest things would be for parents who actually admit that their kids are not achieving, that they're disappointed, that perhaps they feel guilty on some level because they do blame themselves or think that they had a part in it. And just the anger then that probably comes out and the tension between these families and their children. And none of that is going to be very helpful because that's not what's needed.
Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
So tell us what your program does and how people can find help and who might be a good candidate to come to your program for help.
Well, how we help is that we have a milieu. In a sense, we have a supportive milieu, a supportive village, composed of various disciplines. And so we try within the first week to really sort out the different elements of the failure to launch and what can one do about it. And that means you look at somebody's whole life. If their goals are academic and they're not performing, well, why? Is there anything we can do to do that? The academic goals perhaps are not realistic. Is that really what they want to do? If they really want to go out and work, really, okay, what do you want to work at? We have psychiatric evaluation, psychological evaluation. And then what I'm most pleased about is we have 17 groups that we run internally, moving from scuba diving to composition to whatever, playing paintball. The point is just get out there. Just begin to get out there and interact with your peers and find some joy. Find some joy, learn to express it, and learn to share it. And whether it be a chemical dependency issue, and we can, and we do address that issue, whether it be learning disabilities, we address that. And whether one has a borderline personality disorder or one has an Asperger's disorder, we don't discriminate by diagnosis because we're all human beings. And so we've set up an environment in which the most powerful healing element, I believe, is peers. Is peers talking to peers in a more compassionate and direct way and being there and providing the understanding that we all need.
So this is both a residential program, a day treatment program, and you have outpatient programs also.
Yes, we have all.
Okay, and where can we contact you? Should I? Oh, okay, here. I've got that here. All right, the phone number is 888-814-5985, or you can visit their website at www.failuretolaunch.com. So are there any closing comments that you would like to make?
Yes, I'd like to thank you for this opportunity to speak about this issue that really affects so many people. And I think the message is there is hope. There definitely is hope.
All right. Dr. Robert Fisher, thank you very much for being here. We're going to take a short break, and I'll be right back after that with a few closing comments.
You are listening to Dr. Kim Taylor on KZSB AM 1290.
All right, well, we've come to the end of the hour, and I just wanted to say a couple things and a couple thoughts that I think as parents, that all of us, our deepest wish is for our children to be happy and to succeed in whatever it is that will make their own hearts sing. And hopefully we've given them the tools and the skills that they need in order to really launch them into the world in order for them to follow their dreams. But if you are having a problem, or if you're concerned about a child, or if you want to know what you can do now when they're young, that definitely go to the website at www.failuretolaunch.com. You can certainly get some answers there. You can also reach my guest, Dr. Robert Fisher, at that same website, and I will also post it on my website at drkimtaylorshow.com. So if you've missed any part of this show, you can certainly listen to the rebroadcast. They're Thursday evenings at 10 p.m. and Sunday morning at 9 a.m. right here at KZSB AM 1290. You can also find my past shows by going to iTunes and downloading the free weekly podcasts, or you can find them now on my YouTube channel. Just go to my website for the links at drkimtaylorshow.com. And of course, I love to hear from you. I want to thank my caller and the people who have emailed in. You can send me your questions and comments at drkim@drkimtaylorshow.com. I want to thank my engineer, Mark Giles, for helping me today and being the guy behind the scenes. That is also Richard Dugan. So be well until next week, when I'll be right back here at 5 o'clock, as I am every Thursday. I'm Dr. Kim Taylor, and until then, remember, nobody else has to change in order for you to feel better. And this is a great concept to teach your kids, to really empower them to stop waiting for others to change and to really take action, work hard, and work towards that successful liftoff into a very productive life. So until next week, take good care, and I'll see you then.